Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make deep minimal house in the style of I.O. Mulen and Harrison BDP. As usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI and presets from this video right at the top of the description. A lot of you guys requested this one, so definitely go check that out. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, here we go. So this is the loop from the intro. We're at 128 BPM, a little bit faster. A lot of Harrison BDP tracks are actually a little bit slower than this, but he does have some stuff at this speed, and typically with this deep minimal style it works better because you have this percussion that's really like bouncy and skippy like this. So the faster speed kind of makes that sound a little bit more intense versus like, let's say we put this whole thing to like 121. It doesn't have that same energy to it that you get with the faster track. For this first sound here, we have this Rhodes, which sounds like this. This is a pretty popular sound in the style of house. Basically, for the chords here, we're playing E minor 7 chords, and then I've kind of added some lower notes as well. So basically, here is like the main chord. You can see we have E, G, and B, the root note, minor third, and the fifth that would make up this regular E minor chord. And then we add this minor seventh on top. And that's how you get the E minor 7. And then when you add, what I added down here is I doubled up the fifth. So it's just the duplicate of this note. And then I doubled up the root note. And then I just have those two down here, just playing an octave lower, just to kind of add some body to the chords. This is how you really like round out the sound. If I turn off those low notes, it's just really in the highs. It doesn't really have like a bass to it. And then that's just hitting on the first upbeat of every 2 bars. So it's like, kind of playing with that like stop and start dynamic, where it's going and going and going, and then it stops right there after 2 bars. But the sound with this one is made using this EP faceplant. It's from Ableton, and what I've done here is I've turned up the tremolo quite a bit. And you can hear it's moving from 2 things. One, we have a side chain, and then one we have the tremolo here. So here is without the side chain. So you can hear the tremolo is giving it that like vroom, vroom, vroom kind of thing with the volume. So I've got that, and that's going into this phaser here, which this is this acoustic cascade, and then I've just turned the dry wet down, and then I've turned the amount and slowed the LFO down. So this is also giving it some movement. Here's without this. And then with it. So it's very subtle, but it's just giving it that kind of extra little bit of movement on top of the tremolo. And then we have a bit of chorus, spreading the sound out. I have a bit of drum bus. The drum bus works really well here to get that like really fat, kind of like deeper sound. Like adding that saturation can add a bit of kind of darkness to the sound to make it feel a bit deeper. If I turn this off, it's a bit too pristine. But then with it, there we go. Then we just have a compressor side chaining it to the kick, just to make it kind of fit in. And then finally have an auto filter cutting out the lows. And the thing with this one that you want to keep in mind is just not cutting too much. Like a lot of times people will want to cut it like here to get rid of the low end. But listen to what happens if I just move it slightly down from there. So yeah, there's all that nice like low mid-range that you really don't want to get rid of because it adds fullness to the sound and to the overall track. So that's what we're doing there with that, and then that's it for the Rhodes. After that we have this chord stab, which sounds like this. So here are the notes for this one. What it is is this one is actually just playing an E minor chord. You can see it's just E minor third and then fifth. And then we're adding a few extra notes on top for these like extra things over here. And really all of these are is we're just doubling up the root note and then the fifth. So if I select these two, and then, yeah, see, those are what it is. So, it's just kind of a nice way to add some extra notes on top of the chord and make it feel a little bit more unique and a little bit more like, not just like a basic minor chord. The other cool thing here is you can see we're kind of playing with the dynamic between the different chords because I'm taking like some of these, like this one for example, don't have all the notes. So you kind of get like a cool dynamic there happening between those different chords. For the sound with this one, this is made using analog. So it's just a saw wave and a square wave. They're detuned a bunch. And then I actually have the saw wave 7 semitones up. So it's adding another fifth. So that's me just playing single notes. And I'll show you, here's what it sounds like without the filter on it. So yeah, and then if I put this back to normal, you can see that with it, it just adds like a very rich character to the sound to have the fifth on top of the square wave. We've got those going into a bandpass filter, which you can see the bandpass has a bit of an envelope, and then I've automated it. This is something I've heard actually in a lot of Harrison BDP tracks, and also in iOS tracks, where basically you'll just have like a bandpass like this on this chord stab, and each different stab will have a slightly different place on the filter. Like that, and usually it's kind of based on like where the pattern is going. Like here, these three chords, I wanted this third one to be the most intense, so you can see it's like, that's what we're doing there. So yeah, the automation is a really good way to just bring it to life, and it's not that hard because you can kind of just get in there with the draw tool and just start like, doing stuff like that. That's how I wrote these in. And yeah, and then we got the resonance up a bit as well. We've got the amp envelope set like this. And then we just have a bit of a vibrato and a bit of unison to kind of give the sound some character. From there, I have a bit of chorus, which is spreading these chords out and making them feel really big and wide. And then we have this echo and reverb, which are giving them space. These are really important as well. Like, if you don't have the echo and reverb, it's going to feel really weird. I'll turn these off. It's about really having those ring out over time like that, as you can hear, and creating this cool kind of vibey sort of chord like this. Then we got this going into a drum bus, which you can see is hitting pretty hard. This really helps because if I turn this off, you can hear like just coming out of the synth. It sounds cool, but it's a bit flat, and this is what really takes it and fattens the whole thing up and makes it all hit really nicely. And then finally, I just have a high-pass filter on there cutting out the low end, and that is it for the chord stabs. The next thing we have here is the bass line, which sounds like this. So this is a really simple bass line. Again, the key we're in is E minor, and we're really just playing the root note, and then one note every bar on the minor third, which is G. So this is the thing with the style. You want your bass line to just be really simple and driving like this, because what's happening is we have a lot of crazy stuff like happening with all this movement between the percussion and the chord stabs. That like once we bring the bass in, this is what the track is missing. It needs something like this that's like the foundation of the track to just be solid and straightforward. And that's the goal of this. We're not trying to bounce around too much. We're not trying to go too crazy. It's just something simple and clean like this. So the way I made the sound with this one, it's just 3 sine waves doing FM here. You can see, yeah, really straightforward. I've got those going into a low pass, which is set like that. Then we just have a bit of drum bus, fattening it up, a bit of compression, side chaining into the kick, and then an EQ which just boosts the lows. And yeah, like I said, really simple bass line. Then we have the kick, which sounds like this. So this is just like a standard, very fat, punchy, sort of deeper kick. You can hear it doesn't have the sharpest transient. It's a bit softer, but it's still really fat. And then, like, if we play just the low end, for example, you can really hear it there. Like, those lows are just really punching through. And then the mids and highs have a lot less information in them. And then I have these two in a group together with just a bit of saturation just to kind of make them hit a bit more. So here's without that. And then with it, you can see how this makes these two really come together and ties together the low end to make it sit properly on top of this track. And yeah, so then after that we have the percussion. I have it all in a group, and then I'm going to just break down every individual sound, and then I'll show you the group. So I'll start with the hi-hats here. We have 3 which sound like this. So what it is we have the main hi-hat, which is playing on the upbeats. You can hear it's really short and tight. You know, with this style, this is usually the type of hi-hat they use, just like a really tight, fat hi-hat like this. It's going to punch through the mix nicely, got it through a bit of saturation and a high-pass filter. Then we have the shaker, just doing like the you can see I shortened that and made it a bit tighter so it doesn't take up too much space in the mix. And then finally, we add in this last one, which you can hear is just adding those extra sort of like skippy hits in there. Which add a lot. They're kind of like the background, but basically you're getting the dynamic of the shaker, which is constantly playing 16th notes, and then this hi-hat. Which is just adding in those extra notes. That really fills the groove out there with the hi-hats. So definitely important to remember that third layer of detail. The next thing we have is the clap, which sounds like this. And yeah, you can hear, you know, it's just a simple, straightforward, very punchy, hard-hitting clap like this. It's going to sit nicely on top of the mix. I'm just shortening this a little bit. Pretty straightforward. And then the last thing here is going to be all this little percussion that we have here. These little sounds that I have named pretty much just based on what they sound like. So you can see I have 5 different percussion hits here on top of just the main straightforward stuff. And I'll show you what the stuff is doing. Here's the mix without any of this percussion. And then with it. So you can hear how this stuff really like brings this track to life and makes the groove work really well. And so this is all the little detail stuff you want to have. Basically, I just have like, you know, like this sound, this sound, this one, and then finally that one. And again, it's just all these little percussion sounds. None of them are really taking up too much space on their own. But you can hear how this is all like really building up the groove nicely. So it's important to add this stuff. And again, the way you do this is just make sure like it's not too hectic. No two percussions are fighting for the same space. It's just these little kind of tighter sounds like this. Which if you want these ones, link is in the description. And they're just in there in the background. And then on the group of all the percussion, we just have a bit of drum bus. So really simple. Here's without it. And then with it. So you can hear that that is just kind of adding that like push to all of them and sort of gluing them all together, making them hit a bit more. And kind of making everything fit into the same world too. Here's without it. And then with it. So right away, you know, it's all super tight and glued together sounding and clean. And it can fit really nicely into the mix too. You can hear, if I turn this off, the whole mix is impacted. Now all of a sudden the percussion just feels too weak. And then you turn it on, and it's banging. And yeah, yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. As always, you can get this full project file and samples and MIDI presets, everything from this video is available right at the top of the description. It's a great way to support me and get some really awesome sounds to make your own tracks out of at the same time. If you're patient on my Patreon, it's already available and has been since yesterday. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.